Hello, everybody, and welcome to my presentation on moving forward with affordable housing options in the communities of Arnprior, McNabb, Braeside. My name is Karen Simpson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arnprior and District Family Health Team. And prior to my role here, and then prior to that, the Ministry of Health, I was actually the Executive Director of an affordable housing corporation that provided a number of different housing projects and also did some volunteer work in the housing area. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my slides, and then I'll walk you through the slides. So here we go. So these are my slides moving forward with affordable housing options for a presentation on April 18th, 2022. So welcome. So as mentioned before, I was previously the Executive Director for 15 years of the Almont Community Development Corporation. It then became known as the Mills Community Support Corporation and now is called CareBridge in Almont. In my role with the Almont Community Development Corporation, the Mills Community Support Corporation, I managed and oversaw the development of 8 affordable housing projects, including housing for seniors, family, and mixed housing, as well as housing for persons with a developmental disability, which included both individual housing and group home housing. Funding for these initiatives came from the federal government and the provincial government, and there were multiple different housing initiatives that we submitted proposals for and built housing under those initiatives. In addition, I was chair of 2 nonprofit housing groups in Carleton Place. In that capacity, I was involved in the development and build of a family housing project and a seniors housing project, as well as involved in the formation of the nonprofit corporations that were required to apply and oversee the funding of those initiatives. I was also treasurer and board member with the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association and was recipient of an Outstanding Leadership Award with that group. Affordable housing has always been an interest, in fact, I would say almost a passion of mine, as appropriate and affordable housing really does provide the foundation for people to be healthy and well. It is one of the determinants of health and is critical to ensuring that people are able to move ahead with their lives. So what does it take to create new affordable housing options? Well, there's many things that it takes, but one of the most critical things is that you need a group of really committed and passionate people who are willing to put the time and the energy in to make it successful. Without those people, it just won't happen. To apply for funding from either the provincial or federal government, you will need a corporate body who will complete the proposal, who will be responsible for the project and oversee any funding that's approved. This can be done through the creation of a nonprofit corporation. It could be a municipal not-for-profit corporation or a private not-for-profit corporation. It could also be done through an existing nonprofit corporation who has an interest in affordable housing, is willing to submit a proposal, but is also willing to see that proposal through to its end. To be successful in applying for the funding, it will require data outlining the need for affordable housing based on demographic data, that's the latest census data usually, and evidence proving the need for additional housing, as well as market rental information that's local to that community. The proposal will also require consideration of the mix of housing types, so row housing, apartments, single, duplex homes, etc., the population to be served. Are we talking about families, single individuals, people with disabilities, or a mix of all of those? The number of units, proposed locations if available, or a description of how a search for a viable property will be undertaken. The mix of types of units, so how many rent to income, how many market rentals would you propose having? And there may be something in the proposals that actually require a certain percentage of rent to income versus market rent. And any barriers that you anticipate. So for example, is there going to be neighborhood opposition? Are there any concerns environmentally that you need to look at? And then a plan on how you will address those barriers. The other thing you need to consider is a draft budget and a communication plan. Prior to submitting the proposal, it is important to understand what the funding options are that are available. what information will be required for the proposal, and what level of funding would be there if the proposal is successful. Because some initiatives don't cover all of the costs of a project. Some may cover most of it, but not all. How do we build momentum for the project? Well, one of the first steps is to use the data that's available to prove the need locally for additional affordable housing. There may be sources of data from surveys, census data, municipal analysis that will support that need for additional housing. I know locally here in Arnprior, McNabb, Braeside, there have been a number of surveys done to garner the interest locally in affordable housing and determine some of the needs and what types of housing is required. There's a need to make presentations to key stakeholders to get their support. So that would include your local municipal groups, community groups, health and social service organizations, and others, which I think would include your faith groups as well, because they're also a key partner in many of these types of projects. Expect some opposition and talk about how you can mitigate those concerns. Develop a plan and timeline and bring people on board by inviting them to sit on working groups or making sure they have opportunities to express any concerns, ideas, or supports. Key considerations: ensure your working group is representative of the community and includes representation from key constituencies. So an example would be your municipal representatives, faith groups, health and social service groups, community groups, and it's always really important to consult and consider on your groups those individuals who you're hoping may want to move into that project once it's completed. Obstacles: always be ready to adapt your proposal and initiative to account for changes in direction or funding. So a good example of that is I had a project one time where the actual cost came in 30% higher than the approved funding in the approved budget. We spent a lot of time looking at that project and the project design to see where we could save money. We ended up actually saving most of the money on the outside of the project, on landscaping, on some of the additional detail work that we had in place. And it was a group home for individuals with a developmental and physical disability. We were successful, and we did it without actually compromising the ability to use the inside of the home to serve those people that we wanted to serve, and it was a very successful project. The consideration of the location and community concerns. And I think with the community concerns, what's so important here is to listen, is to hear what the concerns are, to address them, to look at how you can mitigate them, to include the individuals in the project, on those working groups, on those other groups, because by involving them, you can hopefully help to address their concerns right from the start and ensure your project is truly representative of the community in which it's being built. And the other factor is to celebrate. So always celebrate the wins along the way. Developing affordable housing is very, very satisfying when it's built and you actually see people move into their new homes. It's a long-term project that you will see continue to grow and flourish throughout your lifetime and that of the community. It's there for a long time. So every time you see that in that project, you can remember all of those hurdles and all of that work that went into seeing that built, but then look at what you have as a community now that it's there. And then finally, garden homes, tiny homes, which is the subject of one of the sessions in this series, is one example of an affordable housing type. There are many others. There's apartment housing, there's row housing, there's a mix of all of the above. Garden homes or tiny homes are affordable because they're small, they're condensed, so cost less to construct and operate. And they are one option in a range of options available to the community to consider. So good luck with developing affordable housing. I think it's something that's really important for this community. It's always important for every community. And today, affordable housing is so critical for so many communities to ensure that people have a decent place to live and to build their life on. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to taking questions.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Sharon Livingston. I chair the Cambridge Council on Aging, and I am in a co-housing arrangement in Brant County with a friend. So we're going to talk today about co-housing. Next slide, please. The pros of co-housing are that it reduces day-to-day expenses, which was not the reason we got into it, but certainly has proved to be the truth. It reduces social isolation, which during COVID has been really a very good thing. And legally, we are tenants in common, so there is a legal agreement between us. Ontario passed a Golden Girls law in 2019 that made co-housing legal in Ontario. Next, please. In the United Kingdom and Denmark, co-housing is hugely popular. It is primarily an option for people who don't want to go to a retirement home, and I would prefer never to go to long-term care. The house that we chose is a new build. It happens to be in an older area in Brantford, across from a park. We installed a chairlift almost immediately so that my housemate doesn't have to do 9 steps. Her section of the house has 9-foot ceilings. The main section of the house has 10-foot ceilings. So lots of light and lots of room. We also have enough room in the basement to build a caregiver suite if we ever needed to get to that point. Next, please. The legalities you need to take care of. We have a legal agreement that settles the issue of survivorship, so that if one of us is too ill to remain here or dies, the other has the legal right to stay until that happens to them, at which point then the house would be sold. We each own half financially and legally, and we split expenses. We set up a separate bank account that we both put money into that covers our expenses. We have a dog named Jasper, who is my responsibility, although Sandy likes dogs. He's not her responsibility, he's mine. Next, please. In Ontario, co-housing exists in Port Perry, and in Guelph, and in Barrie, and in Bracebridge. They're combinations of numbers and types of people who have an opportunity to live together. All the homes are different. Ours is a new build. Everyone else has renovated their homes. And I read recently in BC of an intergenerational home share, and there's another intergenerational home share being built in Cambridge. Other options of home share can include Abbeyfield and home share. And Wendy Meek from Community Justice Initiatives will tell you more about home share. There's a page of resources, next please, that you can, and a way to contact me by email if you have any questions.
Hello. Thank you, Sharon. My name is Wendy Meek, and I'm from Community Justice Initiatives. We've recently started a Waterloo Region home share, which offers a free supportive process for home providers and home seekers in their search for a compatible individual with whom to share a home, and to assist them in completing a living arrangement memorandum of understanding. We also offer existing home sharers the opportunity to be assisted in completing a living arrangement memorandum of understanding. Our catchment area is Waterloo Region and the outlying areas. So what is home share? Home share is a housing style where 2 or more people, usually unrelated, choose to share a home together. As you can see from the picture on the right-hand side, it could look different for everyone. If it's a home, you can home share if you have space in that home. So shared living arrangements address the needs individuals have when they choose to age in their own home and community. They don't need to leave their community if it's a situation where they need to leave from a rented home. So they can choose, the older adult who has space in their home can choose to continue to live in their own home and find a compatible person to share that home with them. They may need additional financial support to cover household expenses, so having someone come and live with them could contribute to the household expenses. They could be experiencing loneliness and isolation and need some companionship. They also want to share household tasks and responsibilities. For example, cooking and cleaning and gardening and snow removal. So that can be negotiated in the contribution to household expenses. They may want to feel safer and more secure by living with another person in the home. Next, please. So how do we identify the individuals? The home providers are those individuals who would prefer to share their home because they may have space in the home. It could be a house, it could be a condo, or it could be an apartment. They may be renting the home as well. So a home seeker is those individuals who are looking to share a living arrangement. The individuals currently are in a housing transition or are looking to share a living arrangement. Home sharers are those individuals that are currently in a living arrangement together. Next, please. So what are the options for home share? It could be a peer-to-peer relationship where two people may be closer in age together. It may be intergenerational. And in Toronto, they have a home share where they have intergenerational situations where older adults and students would be sharing a home. So it could be older adults, young adults, and students that choose to share a home together. A home provider may own their own home, as I've said. Home providers may currently live in a rental home as well. Two individuals that are both currently in a housing transition and are looking to share a living space. They may want to rent a home together, or they may want to buy a home together. In a pre-existing living arrangement, they are requesting assistance in completing a home share memorandum of understanding. As we all know, when individuals move in together, you find that you can exist together for a while, and then there may be some conflict situations happening. And if you haven't discussed how to live together beforehand, before moving in together, you may find yourself in a difficult situation. So intergenerational families currently living in a living arrangement or seeking to live together in a living arrangement. So we found that because of COVID, there are families that have decided that they want to move in with their older parents. And again, if they have not discussed beforehand how that living arrangement would look like, it could easily turn into a very difficult situation for everyone. Next, please. So what do we assist with? So home providers and home seekers who are interested in this process, they can contact us and fill out an application. We would take them through an interview process where we will discuss what they are willing to live with and what they are not willing to live with, and get an idea as to what person they would be comfortable living with and what situation, what space they will be comfortable living in. We will also do a home visit of the home provider to ensure that the space is comfortable and safe. And we can also refer participants to our other programs if they request that. We have assistance in harm reduction and peer mentoring. So those are all available to them free of charge. We then have an introductory meeting with the participants to see if they can make a connection with each other and they can be compatible. And if they can, then we would continue with that match. We would ask them to do references or assist them in doing those. They would need to do a police check, find out about how the insurance is going to affect them living together. And then any legal advice that they are interested in getting, that is their responsibility. So the home share mediation, when we get people together to do a living arrangement, memorandum of understanding, is discussing situations that may occur in the home. You may talk about things like a living area. Is it public or is it private? The bathroom, if you are sharing a bathroom, what would be the schedules of each participant in the home, so that there is no conflict as to who is using the bathroom at what time to shower or etc. Also kitchen, who is using the utensils, who does the cleaning, what part of the fridge is available for each individual. So those kind of questions, like pets as well, who takes care of the pets. They would also be discussing what the contribution to the household expenses would be. They would also be discussing who is going to do what chores in the home and how does that affect the contribution to the household expenses. Very important as well, they would be discussing what a transition out of that living arrangement would look like. And if there is any conflict situation that is there, they would then revisit mediation to see if they can resolve those issues. If not, if there is a termination, they would be discussing that, what that looks like, how they want to transition out of that living arrangement. And that is the ongoing support that we would give them once they have moved in, is if they would like to revisit mediation, if there is a transition that needs to happen, and or termination. So that is our home share process. And if you'd like to find out more about our program, you can contact us. I've got my email there. The phone number is 519-744-6549, extension 265. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sahado Alolo, and I am the manager for community engagement at Multi-Faith Housing Initiative. I am extremely pleased to be presenting to you about Multi-Faith Housing Initiative. In the ensuing slides, I will be talking about Multi-Faith Housing Initiative, in short MHI, who we are, what we do, and our history, and our future projects, and our multi-faith aspect as well. So there we go. Why do we actually do this business? Why are we in the business of providing housing? I think most of you who will be listening to this or watching this will already know that we have a crisis. In Ottawa especially, we have a crisis, and I think across Canada, the crisis of homelessness exists. Lack of affordable housing is a major pandemic in most cities in Canada. And so, as most of you may be aware, in January 2020, the city of Ottawa declared a housing state of emergency. And that's because year after year, we have over 12,000 households that are waiting on the affordable housing registry just for a home they can, they can afford. And the number keeps rising up year after year. And so as a result of that, the city of Ottawa passed a motion, and in January 2020, MHI with many other citizens of Ottawa and other nonprofit organizations and civil society organizations gathered in front of city to create awareness and to protest. And that is what you see in the picture there. So all about MHI, and it's quite ironic that in 2020, the state of emergency was called to shed light on the lack of affordable housing in our city and the state of homelessness of, citizens of Ottawa. MHI started doing this work almost 20 years ago. And you would think that by now we should be getting closer to solving the lack of affordable housing situation in our city. But unfortunately, the need for affordable housing keeps rising. And now with the pandemic that we are just coming out of has just made things even worse. Unfortunately, we would like the situation to change, so we will no longer be in business. But unfortunately, here we are. So I'll just briefly talk about our mission. We are a charity and we are also a nonprofit organization. The mandate goes without saying. We are here to provide and promote safe, affordable, and well-maintained housing in inclusive communities and to mobilize resources for these purposes. How do we mobilize the resources for these purposes? We are a faith-based organization, and currently we have a membership base of about 80 different faith groups, ranging from the Christian community, Baha'i, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, and any other civil society or religious organizations that wish to be part of us. It doesn't necessarily have to be a denomination or a group at anything that is faith-based can join Multi-Faith Housing Initiative to be members. And currently we have year after year 80 members that sign up to be part of our organization. So currently we own 179 rental units, housing about 300 to 400 people. So here are where our housing properties are located. We have a single home on Kent Street, which we call Kent House in Centertown, Ottawa. That was our very first home. It's a single home that we bought as our very first housing, and sort of fixed it up, renovated it into 5 single units and provided housing to 5 individuals. And from there, as you know, once you start doing it, the need continues to grow. And so as an organization, as part of our growth strategy, we bought Blake House, which is in Vanier. And from there, we moved to Somerset, and Somerset Gardens, which is also in Centertown, is actually a condominium where MHI bought 10 units, 10 condo units, and rented it out to people who are on low income. And from there, for all the 3 houses, we never built from scratch. As we can see from Kent House, we bought, Blake House, we bought a very old apartment building and fixed it up. Somerset, same thing, we bought 10 units condos from, a condominium. But the Haven is one of our prized possessions because it is one that we actually built from scratch. We got an opportunity to bid for land with the city of Ottawa, and MHI emerged the winner for that bid, and we procured land in Barhaven, and we put up a 98-unit affordable house right in the heart of Barhaven. From there, we wanted to do something different, and that's because the need for affordable housing for homeless veterans became apparent, and we became aware of it. And typical of Multi-Faith Housing Initiative, we wanted to do something about it because, as most of us are aware, our veterans gave up everything you can think of to go into places that some of us cannot even dream of going to fight for our basic fundamental human rights and the ability for us to have freedom in our country, Canada. And they come back very ruined as a result of the hardships of war. Most of them suffer from mental health issues, addiction issues, and so we find most of them being homeless in cities across Canada. And so Multi-Faith Housing Initiative, an opportunity arrived for land on Rockcliffe, the former Rockcliffe Air Base, and there was the need for us to do something about it, and we went for it. And so we built Veterans House, which is a home for homeless veterans. We are, as an organization, committed to building communities that are safe, affordable, inclusive, economically diverse, welcoming, community-oriented, and responsibly dense. And in addition to that, we also make it transit-oriented. As you know, we serve people who are on low income and most often do not have cars. So we want our housing to be close to transit stations so our tenants can have access to transportation. So, you know, we've been very successful as an organization, and the secret to our success actually lies in the heart of the people. And so for us, our most treasured asset is the people. Number one, the staff and volunteers. And of course, we couldn't go anywhere without donations from our generous donors. MHI's growth has been accelerated by donors who continually give us money to be able to subsidize the rents for our tenants who come to us. We have different programming. Some of our tenants receive in-house subsidy that we provide to them that you know, complements their income so they can afford the housing that we provide. And one of the biggest events that we run annually to be able to raise that amount of money, that 100% of the proceeds goes towards tenant subsidies, is called the Tulipathon. As you can see in this picture, it's a charity walk where we bring people of all faiths together. They usually come with their banners and they walk with us in solidarity to raise awareness about lack of affordable housing in our city and the issue of homelessness in our city. There are several ways that people can help. You know, we always need help and we always accept help at any time. One way people can do is join our mailing list. We don't sell, you know, information to third parties. We keep it in-house, and what it does is that people keep abreast of, you know, what we do and where we are going, new projects, new fundraising ideas and events and stuff like that. So you can get information and share information about what we do by signing up on our email list. If you are social media inclined, you can also follow us on social media, share our content. The more people get to know about us, the more support we receive from the community. You can learn more about Multi-Faith Housing Initiative by visiting our website. There are so many ways when you get on that site you can do to support us. Obviously, you can donate. Money is always needed to provide subsidies and for programming and for all things that we do at Multi-Faith Housing Initiative. And of course, volunteers are always needed. And MHI volunteer program, basically we recruit people with, you know, specific skill sets to sit on different committees. So depending on a volunteer skill set, we'll be able to match a volunteer to a committee. Most of the committees meet once a month to you know, sort of engender MHI strategic plan. And we also have faith groups. And if you are, you know, a faith-based organization, we encourage you to take membership. Membership doesn't necessarily require much from our members, but it's a solidarity kind of membership where you pay $100 a year to be listed as being part of our organization. You have a right to vote during our AGM. You get invited to our events. You get to invite us to present to your group at any time. You get to join us during Tulipathon and walk with us. And so that's basically what membership entails. So many ways you can sign up on Multi-Faith Housing Initiative's email list. Basically just, you know, going onto our website, and you can find all the links to be able to sign up. And here are some of the links. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on the Veterans House Facebook page, we are on Instagram, we have a YouTube account as well where you can find videos of some of the events that we've recorded over the years, and of course we are on LinkedIn. But you can find all of these links through our website, and so I encourage you to actually take the time and visit multifaithhousinginitiative.ca, and you'll be able to find more information. So that is the end of my presentation, and I thank you so much for listening to me, and hopefully we get to participate in your live event, and if people have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time and the opportunity to kind of walk through what we're working on in the affordable housing space. We are a developer in the Ottawa area. We've got properties from the east end of Ottawa through to Arnprior, and certainly one of the things that we are focused on is trying to do our part in the affordable housing crisis. So we've developed a brand of affordable housing buildings that we are looking to build across the Greater Ottawa area. As everyone knows, we are facing a housing crisis that's a few years in the making, long before COVID, but COVID has certainly had a lasting impact on housing supply and the supply chain, which has compounded the issue quite significantly. The main reason we have this crisis is really a polar opposite direction of rent growth and income growth. It just income has not kept up with rent over the past few decades, and it's leading to a very big gap in housing affordability. The current response has really been targeting supply, which is certainly part of the problem that exists in affordable housing, but it's not the only problem in the sense that new supply has a very high price tag associated with it. And so while it's bringing new supply, which frees up other units through the housing continuum, which really starts at the subsidized housing level and goes all the way through to market housing on the for sale side, where people are looking at home ownership. So there's a number of steps in between from subsidized to home ownership. Our focus is to provide affordable rental options, so not subsidized housing. So most of our strategy has been developed around providing rent that is affordable on mass scale, which is hopefully going to lead to freeing up that supply for the subsidized housing units that are really the high level of need right now, and certainly the most critical area in terms of homelessness and shelter use and that sort of thing. So one of the problems we found when we first started looking at affordable housing was the definition. Every level of government had a different way of defining it, and we found that really challenging to have meaningful discussions with each level of government. And so we, on our own, we kind of looked at, okay, why don't we define it as what is a practical goal that we're trying to solve for? So our metrics, basically, we wanted to be able to provide housing that was affordable to somebody making minimum wage, working full time. And then we wanted to have the upset limit on our rents to be, what could two people making minimum wage, working full time afford? And obviously in that scenario, it might be a spouse, but it might be a roommate scenario. But mainly the goal is to provide housing for people that are actively working or retired, but at a level that is affordable for that population, while also taking into consideration other things like, if we've got a site that doesn't require vehicle, that has a meaningful impact on the overall life affordability for that person. So in that scenario, that person can spend a little bit more on rent if they don't need a car to get to and from work. So we sort of looked at it holistically, and it has to be looked at project by project. We've got some projects in Canada that are going to be a little bit more dominant car focused than projects in downtown Ottawa. When we first really looked at what the problem was, this slide was put together quite some time ago now, and so the cost side has really changed dramatically. But basically, we wanted to look at where rent goes for a new construction project. And when we started looking at how much it costs in construction, both the hard physical costs and also just all of the development charges and fees and financing costs and all of that, how that all rolls up and where a typical monthly rent would go. There's a number of these things really aren't, there's not really a way to cut those costs, but we wanted to see what areas we could work with to try and lower the cost of the monthly rent. And keeping some of the things, as an example, we pulled out the developer profit side. That's an important one because it's something that's often kind of, I'll say, vilified in the industry, that developers should just take less profit, which to some degree, I believe there's room to solve it that way. But at the end of the day, every project, at least all of the projects that we work on, require financing from the bank, which also involves the federal government often through CMHC. And if a project doesn't have a certain amount of profit in it, the bank won't provide financing for that development, and the development won't get built, which then compounds the supply issue. So each development has to be looked at to say, if the market changes, is the bank going to get their money? Is the federal government going to be secure in their insurance on the mortgage itself? And so that's something that really isn't a variable that is changed very often. Obviously, with affordable housing, the idea is that profit margin can shrink to help offset the lower rent. Inclusionary zoning is something we see in major cities where the city is mandating affordable housing be built within, in Ottawa, it's going to be within transit-oriented development sites, but it's something that might be looked at on a broader scale across the province potentially in the future at some point. But really what that does is solve a part of the equation in delivering affordable housing. Let's say it's 20% of the project. The challenge, if we go back to that other slide, is that profit still needs to be there. So what happens is that 80% that is market housing actually gets more expensive to make up that difference. And then especially in the apartment side, what happens, that leads to higher rents on the market side. But then every building that is competitive with that new construction project, they look at it and say, my rents should be a little bit discounted because this is a new product. But if all of that, those new housing units are at a much higher rent level, it typically sees rents really escalate quickly. And you see that in markets. It doesn't take long for a trend to catch on. Arnprior has been an example where rents have gone absolutely, skyrocketed over the last 3 or 4 years. And a lot of it has to do with new supply coming into the market, whether it's renovated or new apartments that set the bar at a level. And now everybody else is looking at that when their tenants vacate and they're renewing their leases, that those rents go up quite significantly. So in terms of what the potential solutions to the problem can be, increasing supply is really important, but we need to find ways to deliver new supply at lower rents. If we just look at the impact of HST on apartments, that's a huge factor that comes into play because the buildings have increased in value quite significantly due to costs and increased rents. And so what happens is the HST that's charged today is significantly more than what it was 4 or 5 years ago when pricing was a lot lower. And so that's really makes up a pretty significant amount. Same with property taxes, as an example, are generally on new construction based off of the cost to build the home or the purchase price of the home. These things have kind of scaled up dramatically without really changing the infrastructure requirements for that housing unit. Oops. So one of the things that we're looking at is really understanding what the drive is for the customer. If you look back to the last kind of housing supply crisis we had in the post-war era, housing sizes were dramatically smaller. So this is just comparing. CMHC came out with a program back in '67 that put together plans to develop homes. It's a lot of the post-war housing in Arnprior, you see it around the avenues. These homes were typically smaller homes that were 800 to 900 square feet, and sometimes they had an additional expansion in the second floor or something like that. But nowadays, if you look at the smallest house you can buy from a developer single family home, the smallest one I could find was 1,400 square feet. And this is at a time where our average household size is considerably lower than where it was in the late 60s. So we've kind of, put pressure on increasing housing size while the household size has declined, which, we think if somebody had the opportunity to have an affordable unit, even though it might be a little bit smaller, that can be really valuable to that group. So things like, ensuite bathrooms or something that you can really is a want and not a need necessarily. And so looking at how we can design affordable housing a bit differently to kind of chip away at that gap. And I really, we've got, discussions with the city of Ottawa, the province, and hopefully soon the federal government in terms of how we can uncover ways to work together to bring that cost base down so that we can provide housing at large scale. We have market housing projects and we have this affordable housing concept. And from our perspective, affordable housing can be a win for everybody. It's It's a product that if we build it and we can find ways to make the math work on our end, we could build a lot of it, and that really helps our business. So I think affordable housing can be a good business model if it can get proven out that you can actually solve the big problem, which is lowering rents. So this is just a quick look at how we actually developed our budget for our first project. We looked at how much is minimum wage, and obviously minimum wage has gone up or is going up a little bit, so these numbers can be updated. But we've kind of looked at rent, food, transportation, entertainment, all the line items that we kind of pulled from census data on how much households and individuals are spending, but then also put together a line item for savings so that when somebody retires, looking at CPP and any sort of seniors programs that can offset or help provide additional income, that person should be able to retire with the same income level as when they were working before. So they need to have savings to do that. And that was kind of our benchmark. And this is what we're working towards in the solutions that we're building. And so we're designing these projects to meet that target. And our first project we're doing in Canada is it's a mix of about 150 units, and then there's 22 townhomes as well. We're working through the project to make sure that we can deliver it affordably before announcing the project, because we don't want to kind of do I'll say a bait and switch with the community in the sense that we want to get approval for our project because it's affordable housing and then the math not make sense. So the project hasn't been announced, but we're certainly working towards that. Our second project is on Carling Avenue. It's about 100 units of the same type of layout. So I'll leave it there, and certainly any questions. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it on the 12th, but my email is Kevin, Kevin at parkriver, parkriver.ca. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out.